to make these seminars run so smoothly. As many of you know, preview week and opening week, we are fortunate to have guest directors when they have a moment to come and be with us. And B.J. Jones is always so, he's just so willing to come and talk, and I thank him profusely for being here. B.J. first came to the Shakespeare Festival in 2007, directed the production of Twelfth Night, came back in 2010, 10 to direct Much Ado About Nothing with David Ivers and Kimberly Mellon. Some of you probably saw that fabulous production. And then in 2013, my way of thinking, he directed the finest Tempest that has ever been presented in my years here at the festival with Henry Warnitz and Melinda Perrette and an incredible cast. And this is the man that was responsible for that, along with, of course, William Shakespeare. A couple of other things about B.J. you may not know. He's been the artistic director of the Northlight Theater outside Chicago for 18 years, I believe. 19 years. And I had the privilege of going to his theater a few years ago when the festival's production of Stones in His Pockets was a joint production with B.J.'s company at the Northlight Theater, and he took Stones in His Pockets there where it was presented. He has directed, he's an actor, directed around the country in regional theaters, he's also an actor and has film work, and he's back to direct, as you saw last night, our production of The Three Musketeers. So welcome, B.J. Thank you for being here.
She's amazing. She knows my career better than I do.
Go ahead.
No, somebody asked if I've been there before, and you just covered it, so that's all good.
Okay, so I wanted to, don't have cup holders here, right? That's next week. Three Musketeers actually has been presented here at the festival before, not the Ken Ludwig version, but written by a professor here at the university named Christine Freza. Some of you will know Christine's name. She was in charge of music here for a while and was a music professor over at the Southern Utah University. In 1996, she did her, someone talking to us? No. Anyway, she did an adaptation of the Dumas novel, and it was presented in the Randall Theater. That was 1996. So I wanted to ask B.J. what he thought when he was first asked to direct Three Musketeers. If you are familiar with the story, are you familiar with the author? Because I asked that because Ken Ludwig, when he was asked to adapt this, I'm sure you know this, he was asked by the Old Vic in England to adapt Treasure Island. And he was all ready to direct Treasure Island when the company Old Vic came to him and said, sorry, you can't do this because another company has already adapted Treasure Island and it's going to open in London. You've got to find another classic to adapt. So he grabbed on to this one, Three Musketeers, after looking at some others to do. And it's rather contemporary. Well, I'll let you talk about. What do you think about Ken Ludwig's adaptation, and what did you think? Had you seen it before?
You know, I hadn't, and the other productions, their other adaptations of Three Musketeers are, shall we say, a little more. They're more traditional. They don't have D'Artagnan's sister in it. D'Artagnan didn't have a sister in the Dumas. At first I thought, well, you know, it's unlike, I've only done Shakespeare here, so, and this is very contemporary, as you know, and what's kind of wacky about it is that it's, a lot of the humor and the style comes from tweaking that classical style and actually working in comic contrast to it. And one of the things I was delighted about last time was the fact that as an audience, you really bought into the Sabine journey, which is amazing to me because I was a little worried that it would feel not organic. It would feel tacked on. But the way you responded to being all the way through the play, particularly at the end, I was thrilled, and the mechanism really works in that regard. Dramaturgically, I think it works surprisingly well. And of course, Siri Ivers is great. When she whips out those two swords and starts flailing them around at Milady at the end, it's kind of thrilling. I also, Dumas. Do you know the story? You know anything about Dumas? His father was, I think it was, no, his mother was Haitian. So he was a person of color, which I think is great. And his father was a very well-known general in the Second Republic's ongoing revolution, if you will. And so I'm sure there was a lot of political talk at the dinner table. And so he said it in 1625, but he wrote it 100 years later, using that time frame to give historical perspective and irony to the current political situation in France in 1700s. And it was serialized. It was wildly successful. The magazine he serialized in, I think, was called La Siècle. And so as a result, my experience of Three Musketeers when I was a kid was, remember those classic comics? Are you old enough to know them? Remember those things? So my experience of it was those things, because they took the serialized version and turned it into a comic book. And it is kind of a comic book. And and at the beginning of the summer, like the end of the first week of rehearsal, the X-Men film came out, and I went to see it because, in between rehearsals, got to keep yourself active. So I took myself over to see the X-Men film, and I went, holy cow, we're doing the X-Men. Really, when you think about it, it's a huge cartoon. And it's, whereas Henry or Much Ado are done with a fine fountain pen, this is writ large in Crayola. I keep saying to the actors, louder, faster. There's very little nuance here. The joy is in the journey and the kind of whipsaw travels, and you'll notice, I think, dramaturgically, and what I mean by that is the structure of the play. You'll notice that there's a lot of review of the plot. What happened just a minute ago? What the plan is to happen again? Because inevitably, almost every scene is either a plot or ends in some form of violence, whether it be cartoon or, in the case of the abbess at the end of the first act, she gets stabbed. And so, and people reacted to that. All the other stabbings or cuttings or, oh, my leg, or something. Everybody's like laughing about that as thing goes down. The violence is rather small v violence. But then when they stab the nun, something that I wish I had done in 6th grade, when they stabbed the nun, all of a sudden people reacted. It was like, whoa, that was such a, you have no idea how, I'm not watching the play at all last night. I was watching you guys and listening to you guys, because all of that is noted. I tell my assistant, he's got a computer sitting on his lap, and as I'm watching the play, I'm giving him notes, and he's typing it in so I don't have to take my eyes off the stage. And it's a chessboard. It's a multi-layered chessboard. I'm looking at lights. I'm looking at sound. I'm looking at costumes. I'm looking at sword fights, and I'm looking at the actors. So it's this very sort of complicated Rubik's cube of assessments that I'm doing.
Did you have any expectation that you'd get that reaction when the nun is stabbed?
No.
Did you rehearse it comedically?
No, it wanted to be serious, because I don't. Could you see? I was upstairs, but could you see the blood
Yes.
Oh, you could?
Yes.
Okay, but then I don't know what I'm talking about. See, we were upstairs and I could.
It wasn't really noticeable, but it was there.
Good, well, that's fine. I mean, I'm not trying to, eviscerate her on stage if I ought to do that, but I was upstairs, so I didn't quite see it. You know what else? I didn't see the rain. From upstairs, the light at that time did not, whereas I guess you guys could
We saw the rain.
see it and or feel it. So I didn't even, and so when he stopped the show, I was like, what's happening? Because I didn't see it from upstairs.
Isn't that funny?
Yes, and I saw it only because umbrellas started going up, and then the ushers came down and quietly said to the people, "You can't have umbrellas because the people behind you can't see." But I couldn't see it either until it, because I was back. But I wanted to, and then we'll turn the microphone over to the audience. It seemed when you talked about being cartoonish, and the fact that there are these moments of great hilarity, and then there's just, it turns so quickly.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're so conscious of the violence in society today because we see it all the time.
Yes.
Did you, did it seem in the script that those moments that are, they're not cartoonish? When D'Artagnan gets beat up, or when someone gets stabbed, and then it shifts real quickly to frivolity. I mean, it seemed like, did any of the rest of you feel that way? That it seemed we're going down this path and then it takes us this way, the script does?
Yes. I keep going back to the history of this. I know, you think, well, it's Three Musketeers. It's a big cartoon. It's a comic book adventure, and what we see in the style, and this is true of the Dumas as well. If you read the book, and there's an adaptation that I just read that was done in 1996. It's very good. I can't think of the author's name. I apologize for it. It got a great review in the New York Times. Brand new adaptation in 1990. Most recent adaptation of the Dumas Three Musketeers. And the guy is working his way through all of Dumas' work, actually. But it is all mountains. There are no valleys. The style. And it lurches you forward constantly into action. But what I said to the cast, because frequently I would refer back to the book, and I didn't read the whole book. Let's put it, it's 700 pages, and I don't know if you noticed, but there are 21 fights in this play, and we really, and we're not doing the book. We're doing this guy's adaptation, Ken Ludwig's adaptation, and I changed a few things with his permission. But life was pretty 3D back then. People were dead young. Life was very fragile. There was a lot of that's what they say in the epilogue, and it was played at a very narrow bandwidth. So there are great highs and lows. There's not, the script doesn't allow for great nuance. Shakespeare has this river of poetry in order to take you on this more gentle and winding journey. Now that's not true with a lot of, for instance, Agincourt, the second act. It's violent. It is boom, 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 and then, interestingly, the last coda of that epilogue, if you will, is a comedy where the courting of Catherine. It's after you've seen all this violence. It's quite. Yeah, it's how is it any different? I asked, because it's so abrupt. The next thing you know, he's marrying the King of France's daughter, and the guy he was just in battle with, the Dauphin, is giving him the fisheye. As he's leaving that scene. It's really so. It's not dissimilar in that regard. But life is lived at a fever pitch in that time frame, and some people, if they were lucky, if they got to 30 years old.
All right, comments from all of you? Oh, we have to take, because this one's temperamental.
Oh, whoa.
Oh, wait. Oh, good.
wanted to comment that I thought the dynamic shaping was really excellent. That the fact that it went up and down like that and had the lurches and then the seriousness was made the play just magnificent and excellent.
That's great. And that is devoutly to be wished for, because there are a couple of things that I really wanted to hit. For instance, when the creepy cardinal tries to make a deal with Milady, and she's so used to being transacted upon, if you will. Is that a metaphor? She's like, she's like, okay, what do you want? She tries to pitch anything, but it looks like it's going another way. And then he's like, no, I just wanted to pull your chain. And I think the death of Constance is very moving, and that's hard to pull off when you've seen all this other stuff going on. But what's wonderful about our actors, well, can I just say, this is a great company. Now, I've seen all these, this particular bunch, and I socialize with them as well quite a bit, but this is really a great company. To be able to do the breadth of work that is Much Ado, Henry, which is as serious as they come, and then to be able to do something as Crayola colored as Three Musketeers with, thanks for that comment, with some resonance, I think is really wonderful.
Plus the physicality of their production.
Okay, so we talked about fights. Someone asked about fights. Can I address that?
Sure.
So David asked me if I wanted to bring on, if I had any. It's hard because there are a lot of Shakespeare festivals in the world. This is one of the larger ones. There's one in Illinois. There's a number of Shakespeare festivals, and of course the big ones, Stratford and Oregon Shakes, and those are more year-round. They open in like February. You know what I mean? So they frequently have fight choreographers on staff. They don't have one here, and so we compete for fight choreographers. I just happen to know a guy in Chicago who basically trained half the fight choreographers in the country, and his name is David Woolley. And Woolley, you can go to his YouTube. He has a partner. He teaches at Columbia College. He teaches violence, if you will, at Columbia College, and has for like 20 years, 25 years. And he was one of the original company of the Chicago Shakespeare. And he did all the fights for those guys. He's done fights for basically everybody in Chicago, and he's trained all these kids who are now he's competing against for work. But he has a partner, and Guido, and I can't remember what it is, but it's on YouTube. They have their show, and they go out and do this like hour-long show of violence, which is both very funny and pretty. Their accuracy is amazing. It's and he's trained all these kids who do these Renaissance fairs. So he's really quite skilled, and I was lucky to get him, and he's a great collaborator and a lot of fun. But it's a challenge for me because not unlike doing a musical, this is like doing a musical. I get to do the scene work a little bit, but then all the scene work ends up in violence, and everybody's got, they're like Milady has never dealt with a switchblade before in her life. So she was like, like, how do I handle this to look credible? And but not, and of course we got some real boys in the company who just love doing. It's every morning they come in and like, okay, now what are we going to learn today? Can I flip somebody over? Can I throw somebody off the stairs? And so it's we do a fight call. They come in early. They do about a 40-minute, because there's so much violence in the show. They do a 40-minute fight call before the show starts, before they go out and put on their mustaches. So it's it's an athletic endeavor, to say the least.
Sorry.
Mic up. Okay.
First thing I wanted to say is that I don't think you could have done a better job on casting if you'd had every actor ever available throughout all time for this play. It was
Right.
absolutely perfect. I couldn't help noticing that our poor villains just got booze and they didn't get the applause they deserved. They really made themselves nasty, and that totally worked. I was very impressed with the pacing. Kept it going to the point that even with the couple of glitches that we had, excitement still ran high, and they picked it up immediately afterwards, so that you didn't have to bring the audience back in. Everyone was already, okay, come on, let's go. Nancy has reminded us we want to hear the things that distracted us as well. The only thing for me was some things regarding the music. If we had a Victorian era costume ball and the Beatles were playing for it, that might be a bit of a distraction. With all the terrific music that Pretorius wrote from the French court of that era, I was a little uncertain why we were using Handel from 100 years later, or the Marseillaise at the end, which is an anti-king song, of course. But I realized that that's more recognizable to people as a patriotic French song. The costuming, I thought, couldn't have been better. Absolutely outstanding. And as far as adding in the sister, probably before the end of the first scene, I thought if Dumas were sitting right here, he would be going, why didn't I?
Oh, really? Oh, that's great.
I thought that not only worked perfectly, but it added to the story, the organic story, without creating a new one. I thought it really did a good job on that. So absolutely an excellent touch.
That's great. Thanks. Yeah, let me talk about the casting briefly. I think this lady had her hand up. Oh, David Ivers and Brian Vaughn go to Chicago, New York, and LA in the fall, and they see thousands of actors. I'm not kidding. And now we all have, as you know, our festival favorites. Folks who've been here before. I asked for Melinda because she was my Ariel, and she's incredible, and she's in Coconuts, and then she flips over to Coconuts, and oh, she's going to be one of the sisters. Pigeon Sisters. She'll be perfect. So anyway, so all credit of casting goes to those guys. I also want to say that the quality of the SUU kids who we have this year is really high, particularly because they can, they can sword fight, and that was a big criteria. Relative to music, with regard to the Marseillaise, the whole point of the end of the play, for me, was this is where they were, the French, and this is where they are now. I don't know if you read my director's notes in the program, but I don't think we can do a play about France this year, given what happened in Paris and continues to happen in Paris and now Turkey. And I don't think you can without thinking about the exterior pressure being put on them. So for me, this play is about the resilience of the French people. Remember that the French taught us about revolution, and they were incredibly valuable to the United States in finding our own footing as a country. And that flag is red, white, and blue. And so for me, we spent the entire night looking at the flag and the elements of the flag all over the set. So I wanted to wash it. I wanted to bring it up to now, because there was a certain sense of the Republic, of in the people, the resiliency of the people. They've been washed over time and time again at World War I, World War II. They've gone through a fair amount of turmoil politically, and so I, in a way, I wanted to be a kind of tribute, and I wanted to bring it up to the now, because the play itself is done in an American argot. At one point it says, "Oh, we're surrounded," and Athos says, "Oh, bugger," which is an English term. It was done originally. This adaptation was done originally at the Old Vic Bristol, and that gets a bigger laugh in England than it does here. But I think I wanted to reflect the tonality. That's why everyone speaks without an accent. Everyone's encouraged to be more contemporary, to work in comic contrast to sort of the visual stylistic look. Does that make sense? I hope that's not defensive. I just thought that's the kind of, yeah, what my thinking was.
I just wanted to address a comment this gentleman made here about the three villains, which I thought was great, bringing the three villains out for their curtain call. When the booing started, Melinda grinned from ear to ear and gave a nod. I don't think you need to feel bad that they were booed.
They're hoping for it.
All three of them took it well, but she was just beaming. Yes, I did well. Thank you.
I did ill. I did ill. Yes, ma'am.
Way back.
I'm really not.
Oh,
I wondered if you could do even a little more with All for One and One for All. Not mocking the French. I mean, I think it could still, maybe even a little more lighting and more just stopping. And because really with Constance dying, which kind of surprised me for the most of the flavor of the show, what is his motivation, D'Artagnan? How do you say his name?
D'Artagnan.
D'Artagnan. His motivation, it's almost more Pirates of Penzance in a way. I mean, he is for the good. I'm here for the Queen. My duty, my sense of duty. And for me, I just wanted a little more with that moment. I mean, that's their hashtag. But if there was a little more moment for when they say that and maybe more stopping, I don't think it would, I think it could even honor the French more. I just wanted more of that true sense of duty. We are on, this is for the Queen and for France. Viva la France, that kind of feeling.
It's broken up. It's not, it's actually All for One, and then he says, oh, go ahead, and then Sabine says,
you're right. There's a little kind of in that. But yeah, I mean, I agree. The cast, they're so fabulous. They're so fabulous. I wanted more from that moment. Is that nothing to say?
I don't know. I'm shooting off guns and fireworks. I'm not sure what else.
Okay.
Maybe a smoke
within
pot?
the script.
I don't know.
Well, maybe just the French anthem.
Well, we do play the French anthem. That's what he
Oh,
was saying. It was the
okay.
Marseillaise.
Is the dying of Constance, I guess I was just thought, it was just poison or something. I mean, I can deal with tragedy. In this setting, kind of surprised she really did die.
Yes.
And no, I really was. And he plays.
Did you ever see the Richard Lester film? 1973. It's magnificent.
Okay.
And it had a cast from heaven. And it was two parts. It was Michael York, it was Richard Chamberlain, it was Oliver Reed, it was Faye Dunaway as Milady, it was Raquel Welch as Constance, and she was a klutz. She fell downstairs, she got hit by a tackling dummy. It was as funny and as moving as you could possibly. Now, she didn't die in the Richard Lester film, but the death of Milady was, she was taken out on a boat to a spit of land while all the musketeers stood on the shore by an executioner, and he beheaded her.
Wow. And
Oliver Reed, who was her husband, is looking at her, and it's a very moving, because here's the thing, this version is profoundly feminist. Constance is as much a hero as D'Artagnan and the Three Musketeers. Sabine is as much a hero as the rest of them. And the anti-hero is, because she was negotiating life in the 1600s, she talks about it too. Maybe she had a tough life, she says to the nun. And she's constantly looking at the next generation, because she's older than the two girls. She's looking at the next generation thinking, this is what I had to do to survive. You know, as Sabine says early on, you know, it's not easy being a girl in the 17th century, and which is a laugh, but it's not a laugh. And really, what Milady had to do to negotiate life, being used as she was, is kind of tragic. We don't deal with it. She references it in the play, and we try, and Melinda's doing everything she can to give it that kind of tragic resonance, because I think it's tragic. But the other two women are sort of valiant and heroic, and it's anachronistic, certainly, in terms of, because in this day and age, we look back on that, and I mean, that's what we're trying to get away from. That's, you know, so I kind of, and she's, even though she's enjoying the booze, and she is enjoying the booze, BOOS, not BOOZE. Although I'm sure she's enjoying some of that too. But you know, I think that character is particularly tragic and deeply flawed. And in our version, she's really trying to resonate that.
It seems like
There are so many stories being told in it, and so much to keep track of, and so much action that that everyone needs to come see it again, I think. Good. Good.
Well, we'll try and do it without the rain, yeah.
You know, can we talk about that a little bit, about the new building, because you guys were talking about it. You know, what happened last night for us, you know, we had, for the rain, it raineth every day. We had wind, we had rain, all we were lacking were snow and frogs. You know, it was nearly biblical last night, but and all that thunder, did you hear that thunder, rumbling, it was amazing. But what was great is, you know, this is a shakedown cruise, and it's going to be a shakedown cruise in this building all summer, and probably next summer too. But what was great about last night is the crew got to do the worst case scenario, well, semi worst case scenario, but there could be, but we had a sound dump, we had rain, they had to, you know, mop the floor, and they had to put the plastic on. You guys had to get into your ponchos and move up underneath. And if you'll notice in this new building, unlike the Adams, you can go not very far. It's only the first 3 rows that are exposed. Then you step up you know, you stand, you have a fruit pie, and you're dry. It's very good. Barn doors got stuck. I'm not sure why that happened. I don't think that's ever happened before. But you know, everything that could happen did. No one was killed in the making of the film. You guys came back every time enthusiastically. So the cast was just like, they were with us all the way. This is so great. Because I went up to talk to them afterwards and said, you guys were valiant, you know. And but my argument is, you guys were valiant. That's what I love about this, is you're all invested in it. You know, when you look around this landscape, that building, that building, that building, this is all for you.
We need to give a shout out to the stage crew as well.
Oh no, I know.
They
Believe
were
me.
fabulous.
Believe me. Here's what I said to them last night at the end, because I give notes at the end of it, because there's stuff we're still working on, you know. And I said, you know, there were times ramping up to this, my friends, where we said, okay, well, the building's not done. We're going to have to cancel a preview, or we're going to have to, you know, yes, there's a problem with sometimes, and it won't be. In another month, you won't have that sun hitting that side of the house. And they put these curtains up, and they're going to fabricate more of them so that it diffuses the lights. But really, that's because of the time of year it is right now. It won't be there in less than a month, as you know. It'll be like an hour earlier. And there's all sorts of things that are working out. And yet, we have just done the first 3 previews in this brand new, gorgeous building, this remarkable $40 million achievement, you know, here in Southern Utah. It's amazing. And I know you mentioned there's always going to be naysayers. Somebody said to me when I was in the elevator going upstairs, and they said, oh, well, you know, some people who live here in Cedar City think it looks too modern. And I said, you know, they hated the Eiffel Tower too. But who'd do without it? In fact, they got a dwarf one over in Las Vegas right now. So, sir, you want to?
I was just going to comment, with all the other things that went wrong, nobody got hurt in the fight scenes.
Yeah.
Really surprised nobody got stabbed or whacked on the head or
Yeah.
something else. That was a really tribute to your training.
That's not my job. I can't take. I go back to David Woolley, who, you know, he knows how to keep people safe and make sure that they're, you know, there's a lot of naps, there's a lot of whacks, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. And really, even during the whole rehearsal period, when you are most exposed because you don't know what you're doing, where the sword's going to come at you next. And they're real swords, you know. They're made, oh, this is interesting. They're made in, what did he tell me? It's the Eastern Bloc. It's like Serbia. So he put in this order last like March, and they're aluminum, so they ring really nice. You know, that's part of the fun. It's like ring, clang, clang, clang. That's really great. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just going to tell you, Ben Holman, who's the
Prop guy.
Right, he did really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Ben Holman told us that just for this one play, he had to buy 30 some odd extra swords. He didn't have enough.
Yeah, and ours are different than the ones that are in much ado, or Henry, because Henry's were the one that they bought for that production. This came through David Woolley, and because he knows, he's very, interestingly enough, all that aluminum comes, as I say, from Serbia or someplace, and then it's assembled by a guy in Illinois, oddly, and then he's a friend of Woolley's, because you know that's what Woolley does for a living. You know, that's so.
The one scene where
they're all the largest sword fighting scene.
Yeah.
Where there are all those people on the stage in those extraordinary costumes. And I was with the action, but there was a moment where I thought, how is this possible on this stage? How are they doing this? It is so expertly choreographed, and the skill of those, it was just breathtaking. And then the final, I think it was either the final sword fight, when they're disguised and they have those long the Musketeers have those long draping costumes with the long sleeves. And I thought, my mind went to how long have they had those costumes to wear during rehearsal, because that's extraordinary to fight.
Well, we didn't have it during rehearsal. I mean, this is part of the, you know, you're putting up, what, 5 shows in a week? That's what we're doing here. You know, there's 2 over there, 3 over here. And we didn't get them until, I tell you, the first dress rehearsal was when they had all those costumes, the wigs, the ball gowns, walking down those stairs in the ball gowns. And I was really nervous because those stairs are really skinny. And so that might be interesting to you. So, you know, the set, it's a delicate negotiation between, because the other 2 guys are the artistic directors, and I'm just the hired hand who showed up. But, you know, the Scott Davis, who's the set designer, he has to design 3 different shows that use similar elements. And you saw that with Henry, for instance, the long English banners, and then some of the French banners, and then here we are with French. But I gave him a copy of the picture of Versailles, and I gave him several other French inflected building architectures of the period, which have those kind of staircases that come down. It's also like, I can't think of it, Invalides, which is the Parisian City Hall. It has those kind of staircase, and I showed it to him, and I said maybe we could use this as a sort of inspiration for the set. And so that's where it sort of came from. So that negotiation had to go through, can we use it for Henry? Can we use some of it for Henry? Can we use some of it for Much Ado? And so it's a very complex, again, that's another kind of Rubik's Cube of sort of artistic negotiation.
How many hours or how many days did you have on this stage? Because you rehearsed in a rehearsal hall.
We came late. Usually at the Adams, I would rehearse my entire show, every rehearsal outside, so that by the time we got to Tech, I was ahead of the game. We weren't allowed here because the stage wasn't done. So it was like very last minute for all of us, which is why people were going, wow, do we have to cancel a preview? Are we going to, you know?
No, and these people would be.
No, that's right. And we didn't have to. Yes, you know, God had something to say about it, but he also got us to the end of the show and no one was hurt. So that was great. Yes, sir.
Okay, this is the Entertainment Tonight portion of the show. Yesterday was Jack Lafferty's birthday. Did you know that?
Yes, oh yeah.
Okay.
We took him to Mike's last night.
Yeah, and he did. Oh, were you there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You were there.
You want to explain to these people what you're talking about?
Don't they know?
No.
No, it's not a club.
Okay. Anyway, my wife and I do a lot of stuff for the festival, and one of the things we're trying to do this year is after each play, we go over to the stage door and we tell all the actors that are coming out what a great job they do and everything because they're very needy. You know, you have to keep telling them. You have to keep telling them that they're good and everything. So we told one of them, Kelly Rogers, who played Constance, that we weren't going to do that anymore. And she said, no, you have to be here every night because I need my hug. And anyway, yesterday was Jack Lafferty's birthday, and he played the villain with the patch. And we were talking to a couple of the actors, and he said, we're all going over to Mike's, which is the only bar, I guess. The only place to go around here, if you want a cocktail afterwards. And so they said, why don't you come over and
Wave to Shakespeare.
I'm glad Shakespeare is finally here.
Anyway, so you went to Mike's.
So anyway, we went to this bar, and it's kind of a biker bar. And we're all sitting at this table over in the corner, and there's all these people in the center that are obviously bikers, and I don't know what else. And here are the Three Musketeers sitting around the table. So I went to Tasso Feldman, who plays Aramis, and I said, Tasso, I said, why don't you guys get together and take these guys out? Why don't you throw them out of the bar? And he said, Bob, I don't have my sword, and I don't have my musket. And I know he's a real trip. And anyway, it's just a little aside of the stuff when you guys go to bed of what goes on around here, because these guys are so psyched up after these shows, and they are so energetic and everything that they just can't go to bed. And in the morning you see them and they're it's like, oh my God, are you okay? So just
Thank you. Any more questions about the play? Here, go ahead.
I just have one quick comment. I love the sword fighting at the beginning before the introduction even.
Oh, you did? Oh, I'm so glad to hear. I'm so glad to hear that because, the thing is, I'm sorry.
Let's go. No, go ahead. I'm just passing the mic.
I've done a sort of prelude every show that I've done here. Tempest had the storm, obviously, so that's sort of.
Go ahead.
So
The storm.
all right, goodbye. No, so we had the storm, obviously, and I had the guys come out early. In Much Ado, we had a big party and everybody was dancing. So every show I've done sort of a pre-show. And part of that is because, they do that little commercial. Hi, it's my first year at the festival. And then she introduces herself, Tammy, as the town crier, as like a human being and not a character in the play. So I try and seize the play back. So if I start the play early, and you get a sense of it, it's a transition from the green show, and then they do that announcement, and then I try and seize the attention back by doing something at the back end of the town crier, kind of a commercial, let's be honest. And so I gotta try and I'm glad you like that, because it was on the chopping block. If people didn't enjoy it, I was probably gonna axe it, but not now. You kept it. You gave it new life. That's good, because those are our. By the way, okay, so all those guys are the understudies for the Three Musketeers. So I call them the B Musketeers, and they're not happy about it.
So you vote to keep it in?
Yes, my wife and I came in from Nevada to see the show, and we both enjoyed it very much. We got here a little late, so this may have already been discussed, so I apologize. But I thought when the villain broke Vitagen's sword, that there would have been a little bit more emotion from Vitagen about that, because that had belonged to his father. And I would have thought there was a lot of more symbolism to that, and there might have been some follow-up comments or some other emotion about that, rather than just kind of picking up a broken sword.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's not in the script. Actually, what he says is, "She's so beautiful," and which gets a laugh. Yeah, a lot of stuff like that. This version of the script does not kind of allow for, you know. I think this goes back to your saying, when one for all and all for one, and it's actually Sabine who says an all for one, and instead of all of them saying it. And that moment, to me, I don't want to take it away from the actors. I wish it was all of them saying it without dragging it back to Sabine. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I just feel, I feel like it intrudes.
Can you
Yes, I can. I think I'm gonna. Thanks for listening. When you come back, you'll see it.
I want to go back to the pre-play stuff. Last year we saw with Lear, we saw it last night, we've seen it in a couple other things. Is this something that's starting to trend with directors doing that kind of stuff that you're working with doing the commercial bits?
No, they've always done that little, when I say commercial, you know, the town, that's a tradition here.
What I think he's referring to is last year at Lear, those of you who saw it, the Three Sisters were on stage.
Microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The Three Sisters were on stage as you were taking your seats. So you walked into the theater, and Cordelia and Regan and Goneril were on stage, and the audience sometimes paid attention to that and sometimes didn't. So I think what Dan is asking is this with the what do you call them, the three the Three Musketeers. Is that something that you've seen in other theaters? Is it more common now to have that than to not have it?
I don't know. You know, the first thanks for asking. The first show I did here, 12th night in 2007, I had this pre-show, and I just added it, and I've done it ever since, because partially because of the facility, and you know, we always, sometimes people come late, so I figure, and also the later the show starts, the further the sun goes down. So I kind of built in this little cushion of transition from the green show into people coming in, and it's always, and I also want to make sure that the play is, that sort of commercial is encapsulated in a theatrical context, rather than just, hi, welcome, you know what I mean? Is it a trend in other theaters? As I said to the cast the first day of rehearsal, I have never done it in any other venue. I don't do it my own. And I direct around the country all the time. You know, Sarasota, Florida, Baltimore Center Stage, a couple of theaters, Steppenwolf at Chicago. I've never done it before. So I guess I just think of it as something I've been doing here relative to the demands of the culture here in Utah.
So I was wondering, BJ, if you, if if maybe the open air situation makes it more conducive to doing that.
Oh, well, that's probably true. That's probably true. I guess yeah, I guess. I kind of love I have to tell you, in the middle of the show, not last night, but back at working in the Adams, in the middle of the show, you'd be like, look up and you'd see the stars, and man, it's just something about it. I don't know how to explain it. It's so different, and you think this is how they did it in Shakespeare's time. Of course, it was earlier in the day. It was like 6 o'clock at night. And have you ever been to the Globe? Any of you over? So you know. And now they've added lights and sound, I hear, right? Not just live sound, but recorded sound, which I haven't been to it since they sold out.
I wanted to speak a little bit to the company. I really like, we come down to see multiple plays, and I like to see the actors in multiple roles. And you saw D'Artagnan, Luigi, can't remember his last name, but we saw him as Claudio, and then we saw him as like 3 different characters in Henry, and then he's in D'Artagnan in the Musketeers. We liked, as the king and queen sat there, we have Beatrice and Benedict sitting, and you kind of see this thing, and I wonder how do they keep all of their characters and their lines, and because Luigi,
frequently they do
tons of lines in all 3 of the plays that he's in.
Well, it takes a special kind of actor to do repertory theater. You need training. You need vocal training. You have to have a nimble mind. Memorization is a real challenge. I haven't acted in 10 years, but I'll tell you, the last 10 years of my acting career, I'm not saying it's over, because someday I suppose there's a Polonius in my future, or maybe a Lear, if I'm lucky. But and I'm 65 now. But the last 10 years of my acting career, and I stopped 10 years ago, so that would have been 55. So from 45 to 55, and I was brought up in a regional theater repertory situation. I was a child actor with the Cleveland Playhouse, and I was in the company of the Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival and court theater. So we did like 5 shows in the summer earlier. And the last 10 years of my acting career, I had to memorize before I showed up for the first rehearsal. So frequently, I show up on the first day memorized. Because if I wait to do it during rehearsal, I'll never get to work on the role. I'll just be memorizing. And that's your basic tool, and your memory is your basic tool in your toolbox as an actor. So get the hard work. Frankly, it's the hard work, the grunt work. Get it out of the way so you can actually play the role. Because just knowing the lines of where to stand is not acting. Do you know what I'm saying? My personal opinion. And it's just easier. It de-stresses you. You got bigger things to worry about. And then, and I think when you're younger, like Luigi, like when I was a kid, I used to show up like with the script in my hand, and we'd do the blocking. They'd tell you where to stand, and I'd be like, and then I put it in my back pocket. And that's the last time the director would see it. Because after I was blocked, all my lines were memorized. Well, that ain't working for me anymore. So the older you get, the harder. I worked with a guy in Chicago called Mike Nussbaum. Mike Nussbaum has been in every David Mamet play and in every David Mamet film. He was also in Men in Black. He was this tiny little guy in the guy's brain, and anyway, Mike is 93 years old now. He's going to be 94 this year, and he's playing Einstein for me at my theater. He was the first artistic director of Northlight, the theater I know. And Mike shows up completely off book. And first day of rehearsal. And frankly, if you throw him on stage, he does 50 push-ups a day and walks 2 miles every day, 93. And he has a much younger wife. That would be a wife who's my age. And he's, the guy he's bulletproof. And he just says, I have to do these plays. And he does Shakespeare all the time. He says, I have to do these plays. I can't not do them. That's what's keeping me alive. That's what's keeping my mind active. And, you could put him in front of an audience first day of rehearsal, and he'd be ready to go. Luigi is, what is he, 30? Maybe. So he's, Luigi or Tasso or Kelly, or when they're younger, they have flypaper memories, and they're like, boom, right there.
I have heard.
When we have actor seminars here, and I've heard the actors over the years be asked that question, and they say it really helps because they're in a different play. They walk into their dressing room for Much Ado, and they have that costume. They walk into their dressing room for Henry V, and it's a whole different environment, especially if they're in the Randall or now the Engelstock. The other thing I've heard actors say is you don't mix up lyrics to songs. You wouldn't sing the Star Spangled Banner lyrics to Happy Birthday. I mean, maybe you would if you were an actor doing a routine, but I think they're being modest when they say that. There is the hard work that it takes. And some years ago, we had a production here where the actor who was in one of the lead roles said at the actors seminar, he didn't understand how hard it would be to memorize once he got here. And he came not knowing his lines, and he was the lead actor. And he struggled all summer long. He was in a couple of shows, and he said never again. He had no idea that the rep would be so. He thought he could just come here from the show he had been in and learn the lines, and he struggled all summer. And the audience knew it. And he said it publicly so we could then talk about it. But there was such a buzz around the theater in the audiences. In my 13 years of being here, I've never heard so much criticism about an actor. And he came forward and said, yes, I wasn't ready. So anyway, comment here.
Well, just a quick comment. I was following up on that broken sword. I felt exactly the same way. Here's a family heirloom, trunk on, then he comes up with a little short sword, and it sort of disappeared. But I felt the same thing with the death of Constance. And like she was like a broken sword, dead, and then the next minute he'd be made a musketeer and she's forgotten. And the little kids, I happen to be where there's a lot of little children, well, maybe up to 10, 12 years old even. And they were the same thing, saying the same thing I was feeling. She's not really dead, is she, Mommy? She's coming back, isn't she? There was a lot of that going on. And that was the sort of the shock at the end.
Well, it's his motivation for going after the Cardinal. Because you forget at that time frame, he would have been hung for attacking the Cardinal back in the day. So in order for that to launch him into that kind of behavioral extremis, and of course he's got the idiot king there saying, oh, he's off the hook. But it's all frankly, it's in the script. I can't help it. I can't change it. And it's all in service of the kind of whiplash that Nancy talked about between drama and comedy. There's no way to soften the fact that she's dead. And there's no way to soften the fact that Milady is killed. Actually, the fact that the kids went, she's not really dead, is she? It means the moment landed. And as opposed to, oh, well, she's dead. No, that means that she's got 4 scenes. That's all she's got in 21. Constance. I think she meets him, 4.5 scenes. But that's all. So the fact that she made that kind of an impact so that the audience is moved or struck.
But it was 4 very passionate scenes, which is
I actually think we win. No, I don't mean that to be glib. I mean, Kelly did it. She pulled it off, and so did he. Luigi's pulling that. That's like 5 lines to be able to communicate that kind of depth of grief. I'm telling you, this cast is killer. They're playing it at the same level of commitment and passion that they are Henry and Much Ado. He is great, I think, as Claudio. Claudio is a very tough role because the whole second act of Much Ado, which I've done 4 productions, I've acted in 3, and I directed the one here with David Ivers. Claudio's a very tough role because he's like this feckless fool, really, in the first act. He's like this, you know. Then he gets married and he turns on her and he becomes a complete. And you're like, I hate you. You're a jerk. What are you doing to her? And then you have to. And then he comes back and you're supposed to like forgive him. Talk about a whiplash dramaturgical choice on the part of Shakespeare, right? I think it's hard, and I think Luigi's great in it.
Well, just to bring it to contemporary times, think about when you listen to the news, and there will be a horrendous story, which we've had several of recently, horrendous, and then they flip, and now today's weather, and then they flip, and now today's sports. There's a 20-minute time frame on local news and 30 minutes of advertising. But you shift, and it happens on the radio, it happens on television, and then add this to social media, where there's this quick Facebook post about something tragic, and then a picture of what those people are eating for dinner. So the whiplash has been, it has been blown completely off base. But there's something about being in the moment for 2.5 hours in the theater where all this information is coming at you. But it is, once again, life being mirrored on stage. Yeah. And so do you want to say one final word before we leave?
Two things, if I can. First of all, this has been very helpful to hear your feedback. And I really appreciate it because, I mean, last night was really great to hear, and you were an extraordinary audience to stay with us, so that was really great. And secondly, this is a special moment in the history of the theater. This place will be here for the next 50, 70 years. And putting a theater up and into business, there is only this moment. You only get to do it once. And we can say, this is why I wanted to come and do this. It's a profound privilege for me to be opening this theater with David Ivers and Brian Vaughn. You know what I mean? It's, I'm some guy from Chicago, and they've been really, really good to me, and Scott and Fred, and to include me in this very intimate, this is Fred's dream, and it's all of your dream. And I'm very moved to be involved in, I was in the first production of the brand new Goodman Theater. I was in the first production of the brand new Steppenwolf Theater. I knew when I was 15 years old what I was going to do in my life. I wanted to be in rehearsal all day and at the theater all night. I wanted to spend 1,000 nights in the dark. That's how I put it. With you, it's an incredibly intimate experience. Your generosity, not just in buying a ticket, but giving over your spirit, your attention. You lean forward. You engage with the material, with the actors, and with the playwright. Year after year, when I hear you guys are coming from where are you from? Orem. Coming every year from Orem, or supporting the actors, or hugging the actors. That's it. We are so grateful for what you're doing for us. It's a privilege and an honor, and this is a magnificent achievement that these guys have spent their lives working towards. And I think of Fred, all these years, Fred and Doug Cook and all those guys who had the vision to put this here. It's unbelievable. So I just want to tell you how much I love working here. This has been a big challenge to get these shows up, and it's nothing short of heroic what this 300 people have done, as well as the people that are on that wall and their names are on those seats. We all did it together, and it's a very special time, and I just want to thank you.